Okay, today I'm going to show you how to do some basic editing procedures. There are a number of different ways to edit shape files or turn GPS data into shape files. I'm going to show you one using ArcMap in particular. There are a number of utilities out there that will do a lot of the same thing and sometimes more conveniently, but what I'm going to do is go through a finished product here, and I'm going to turn on the points from where we walked around the campus this morning, and there's a bunch of kind of garbagey stuff up here where we were talking before we started and as we finished, and some other just sort of out of whack points there. So we'll edit out some of the garbage and end up with a relatively smooth curve for where we walked along the sidewalks. We'll take that point shape file and turn that into a line file. We will then have to, the line doesn't close, we have to close the line ourselves. I'll show you how to do that, and then eventually we will turn that closed line into a polygon. And we can add the aerial photograph of the campus here. It looks a little skewed because I've got it in a geographic coordinate system. Let me switch it to state plane. That's on a different datum, and it should give me a warning that it's a different datum, but sometimes it doesn't. In any case, WGS 84 and NAD 83 are different datums, but they're really quite similar, and given the inaccuracies of our little handheld units, we don't mind that much. Also, if we want to, we can transform one datum into another. So now let's turn all of that off and activate our blank data frame. So our fairly modern GPS units store data as GPX files, and there's a tool to convert that to a shape file. So we go to the conversion tools in our toolbox from GPS, and there's a script, GPX to features. The GPX file should be down right about here, and we'll do that one. And I don't want to put it in the default geo database, but I do want to keep the name similar, so I'll copy that name, and then we'll go this actually is where I want it, this falls subfolder under the GPS, and I'll call this one point 2 since I already have a point that I had finished. Okay, all right, there we go. Now what we want to do is edit out some of this kind of garbagey stuff. We turn on the editor and say start editing. We only have one file. It's supposed to tell me, give me a list. It hasn't been doing that today. In any case, we are now editing our one and only shape file. I can highlight a point and delete it, a vertex as it's called. I can highlight that and delete it, or I can select features by rectangle, and I can delete a whole batch of bad ones at once. And let's see, This looks pretty okay except for over here. Let me zoom in a little bit, and we'll go back and select these few here that don't look quite right. And there's just a couple more. That one looks a little off. Let's get these ones and that one, and let's go back to our full extent at the moment. That looks pretty good. So let's save our edits and stop editing. So now we have a point shapefile. What we want to do is first convert that to a line shapefile. Like I say, there are different ways to do this. Some of them more convenient than this, but just to show you some of the things to do. So we go to the data management tools, and once again use your search function. It's usually necessary. It's hard to remember all these, but here under data management features, points to line is what we want. And our input features, we only have the one. Once again, we're not going to put it in the geodatabase folder, but we're going to keep the same name and or similar name. So I'll call this one line 2. We can leave these. We don't have any need for these optional parameters. All right, there we go. All right, now let's see. Let's turn off the points, and we'll highlight that, and we'll say, whoops, start editing, and we highlight it. Then we'll double click. All those vertices sort of disappeared, but they're still there. And what we want to, the little floating what do you call it, toolbar here, we'll use the continue feature tool, and we'll close up our you have to close your line. Let's save edits, and let's stop editing. Okay, now we want to, let me go ahead and save in case we end up in a fix here. So now what we want to do is, here's my folder I'm keeping everything in. We want to go here, double click on the folder we want to put it in, go to new and new shapefile. Oh, let me cancel that for a minute, and let me copy that and go back here to new shapefile, and I'll paste that name in, and we're going to make a polygon, so we'll call it poly2. Make sure you specify a polygon, or you're going to get something you don't want. We have to set the coordinate system. This is WGS84. I think it's always a good idea to check. Yeah, it is. Alrighty. Okay, now we have a polygon shapefile, but there's nothing in it. What I want to do now is edit that, and it should give me a choice, a list of things, but it for some reason it's not doing that, which kind of makes it a bit of trouble. All right, so let's go here to this little wrench here, construct polygons. It's wanting to put it there. That's where we want it. And we'll leave this at the default, and we'll say OK, and there we have a polygon. So we can I forgot to mention, we have to select our line what that we want to make into the polygon. If you don't do that, it fails. But now let's go ahead and add our aerial photos. So N063E157. I could rename these more nicely. And I think it's a little bit out of whack there, but we'll let's save edits and stop editing before we do anything else. Now let's reset to Kentucky State Plain, and there we are. We can save that. Let me point out just one thing that's a little bit interesting. These are 2-year-old photographs. The building I'm sitting in 2.5 years ago, was a great big hole in the ground. So lots of things have happened in the last few years. But anyway, that is enough for today, and I'll continue to make other videos as necessary.